Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching tonight's production of One on One Nightly on Twitter and YouTube. I'm Gigi Spear, and tonight I'm joined by two great people and great minds for this production. Please join me in welcoming Miles Grossman and Will Grant. Miles, Will, how are you guys tonight? Are you ready to get into talking some sports?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Gigi. I'm happy to be here.
So excited to be here, Gigi. Thank you. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We have a great show lined up. We're going to talk NBA. We're going to talk WNBA. We're going to talk Yankees. We're going to even bring in Yankees beat reporter Ryan Gregoire. But before that, we're going to talk about the NFL. Now, I know it seems like Will is a little bit more invested in the NFL, but Miles, you were pretty invested in this Jets game that we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Absolutely. Watch the entirety of this Jets game. Zach Wilson, those 4 interceptions, 3 in the first half. It was truly hard to watch for most of it. But I don't think that we can be so quick to blame Zach Wilson and call him a bust just yet. We saw 7 drops out of a pretty abysmal wide receiver core. And I just don't think that you can blame a rookie quarterback this early on with a fresh head coach against Bill Belichick, even when it's at home.
You're losing the home opener, and that's definitely not good for morale. And Will, I know you're invested too in the NBA. You had a lot of good headlines to talk about. And so we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Ben Simmons, and he's probably getting traded, God knows to where. And we're also going to talk about the Warriors a little bit and how mind-blowing it is that they're back. And I actually found the stat that the Warriors are one of 3 of the original teams, along with the Celtics and the Knicks. So this is the NBA's 75th anniversary season. So it's also the Warriors, Knicks, and Celtics 75th anniversary season. So NBA doesn't start for another couple of weeks, but we're going to get into it tonight too. We're going to get into the WNBA, and then we're also going to talk, like I said, about the Mets and the Yankees, more about the Yankees with Ryan Gregoire coming in. So Will, let me ask you a little bit about basketball first. So what was one of these headlines that you read tonight?
I actually read a few of them, and the one that caught my eye the most was the Timberwolves. With Ben Simmons, the Timberwolves have a habit of snagging up these young point guards to develop them. Saw it in D'Angelo Russell. It's going on right now with Anthony Edwards. Who knows? But he can really go anywhere. We can wake up tomorrow. He could be on the Knicks. He could be on anybody. You could see him in any type of trade. Look, he's on a 4-year max right now. He's getting paid a ton of money. Not a lot of teams want him. We saw how he played in the last playoffs, and that was not anything to go crazy about. But the guy is a playmaker, and it's gonna take some seasoning for him to develop. And if he has the right guys around him, I believe that any chance he has, he's going to be able to win.
And where do you see him going? Where would the right guys be for him to be around?
It's tough to say, Gigi. I like the Timberwolves. I also like Golden State a lot. We're getting Clay back in December. That's going to be insane. It's going to boost them up. I know they're 7th in the power rankings right now for the West. Hopefully that's going to change. That's out of control. But they got him. But the thing is, the issue that seems to be brought up in most articles and everything that people are saying is that Draymond Green is also on the team. Now, the issue with Draymond Green is not that the two of them have any beefs or they don't like each other. It's the fact that both of them are non-shooting playmakers. And it's hard to have 2 non-shooting playmakers on the floor because you're going to need somebody to put the ball in the cup. So that's where I really see the issue with him going to Golden State. But who knows? He expressed interest in the Heat. They just picked up Kyle Lowry. I know he expressed interest in the Knicks. They just got a new point guard in Kemba Walker, hometown fella. Everyone loves him, excited, hyped up about it. I'm sure a lot more happy with him than getting Ben Simmons. But for now, like I said, you could wake up tomorrow. He could be on any team. So we'll just see how it goes from there.
We will see how it goes. And Miles, I'll ask you about that too later on. But first, we're going to talk about the NFL. We've got to. And like you mentioned earlier, Zach Wilson, 4 interceptions, 3 in the first half. And those first 2 interceptions turned into 10 points for the Pats. So, Miles, I'm going to go to you first. I want you to tell me what you saw from the Jets offense on Sunday.
Well, the Jets offense obviously didn't have a very successful night. I think the Jets defense is what kept them in the game on Sunday, to be honest. The Jets D really seemed like they had something brewing. The defensive line showed some real intensity, got to Mac Jones a good amount, and forced him to make some rookie throws, some rookie moves. But he did still look like more of a pro than Zach Wilson on the other end. And you can really attribute that to Bill Belichick, because when you look at guys, even the greatest of all time, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, guys like Tom Brady were brought into the league under a Bill Belichick system, right? No rookie quarterback can do it by themselves. And I think it's hard to blame Zach Wilson this early on when you have a rookie head coach, you have this kind of wide receiver core. So I'm excited to see what Zach Wilson does over year 2 and year 3. Obviously, no one really thought this was going to be the year for these Jets. Like you said earlier, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I'm excited. It seems like there's a bit of something brewing with the Jets, even with the 4 INTs. I think those rookie mistakes will be relatively easy to fix for a guy like Zach Wilson. He looked poised at BYU. I think he has potential to become a real adult quarterback in the NFL. And even while it was a tough game offensively for the Jets, I'm excited for the rest of the year.
But Miles, I have to ask you, can we really give that much credit to the Jets defense if Mac Jones is connecting on 73.3% of his throws for 186 yards? I mean, that's a phenomenal game, especially compared to Zach Wilson. So you're giving a lot of credit to defense that I don't know deserves it.
I hear you. No, the secondary really doesn't deserve all the credit. I guess what I'm thinking of is that D line, because you saw a lot of pressure on Mac Jones. I believe they had a wonderful pressure on Mac Jones. They got him to get rid of the ball. And I believe this was in the first quarter. And then they slammed him to the ground just as he releases the football. And they called the roughing the passer. Then on that same series, the Jets defense is still able to hold. They get a sack on that same possession, and they get the Patriots to punt. So I guess there were just those glimpses of defensive intensity that we really haven't seen the past years with the Jets. The comparison that comes to mind is Clay Helton with USC, who just got canned, right? Clay Helton has had so much talent over his tenure at USC, but he never really got the defense to have that spirit, have that, honestly, in the NFL, ready to kill mentality that it takes to succeed. So I think that the Jets were really lacking in that defensive intensity over the last 3-4 years, and they kind of showed it this week at home against Mac Jones. Obviously, he was a rookie that made him, look like more of a poised quarterback than their own. But still, I'm optimistic about what this D-line can provide the rest of the season.
Okay, now we'll have to swing to you, Miles. You have some valid points. Well, how much credit can we give to Bill Belichick and to coaching in general in football, especially for rookie quarterbacks?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's all about the system that you come up in. I think with a young quarterback, you can't expect much. I mean, these guys, this new crop of quarterbacks had such amazing lines, like Trey Lance in North Dakota State. Obviously, he was facing a lot of FCS defenses with a North Dakota State line. Trevor Lawrence facing a lot of SEC defenses and ACC defenses with that Clemson stacked line. So no rookie quarterback could possibly be used to the pressure that they're going to face in their first season again in the NFL. So that system that they come up in is going to be extremely important. And I just don't think that the Jets having the yearly or bi-yearly head coaching turnover is going to help, develop any sort of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers quarterback in the Jets franchise. There's no tenure of winning. There's no history. There's no tradition of having that winning mentality. So I don't think that the yearly head coaching turnover helps Zach Wilson whatsoever.
And Will, I want to go to you on that. What are you thinking about the Jets? What are you thinking about what you saw on Sunday?
What I saw on Sunday, I thought it was a bloodbath, and Miles, like to put it nicely, he said the defense kept them in the game, which I think is, I think you're being nice there. But honestly, at this point, it's too hard to judge whether Zach Wilson is going to be an effective quarterback or not in the league. We can always look back at that stat of Peyton Manning's rookie year when he had 28 interceptions. That's what all Jets fans are posting on Twitter now. It's like that's the news for them, basically, the only way that they're going to keep hope. But basically, stat line, the first half of the stat line looks all right, 19 for 33 with 210 passing yards. But then you got 0 touchdowns. You got 4 interceptions, like Miles said. It's tough, but I mean, the only good part about this is that they're only going to get better. It's literally impossible to get worse from here. But basically, they're the fourth in the AFC East. 7 drop passes too. That's a huge thing. We got to get Berrios, Davis, and Moore grabbing the ball. It's not always Zach Wilson's fault. That's something you got to remember. The kid was also playing on a minor groin injury, practicing fully this week too. So that's good. Good to hear. But basically, if he gets hurt, that's my worry for the Jets. Because on the bench they have Mike White, who has no regular season experience, and that is frightening for someone who is a fan of the New York Jets. Honestly, like you said, Miles, Rome wasn't built in a day. The kid's played 80 snaps. How are you going to make any judgment on him? His O-line, it's strong for the running game, but he can't get a second in the pocket. He can't pass or do anything. He also doesn't run, which is sort of an issue, but they'll figure it out. They'll get that straightened out. But basically, something that I took from this game was that this guy threw more interceptions in one game than his entire 2020 season at BYU. And that just says something, like your point before. He's playing with a completely different team, basically the worst team in the NFL, and he's so used to just dominating. I'm sure he had a great offensive line before, but basically when you're coming up with these stats, you're having the worst game since Mark Sanchez in 2009 when he threw 5 interceptions and Wilson on Sunday throws 4. It's embarrassing, and the only thing I can say is that you can go up from here. But we can think about the future now. The next opponent's the Broncos. You got Shelby Harris and Mike Purcell questionable, which is good defenders. So they could poke holes through that defense all day, I think, if they get the right game plan going. Broncos beat the Giants in Jacksonville. Not too much of a fight put up there. But I think that, the Jets, if they can put something together, recoup from last week, learn from throwing 4 interceptions, that they could actually turn this thing around and potentially win 9 games.
That's very optimistic of you. 9 games.
Yeah, I think it's extremely optimistic. I think you guys are both giving a lot of credit to the Jets, more than you maybe should. However, I think I want to just go back to that real quick. And I mean, we could look forward as well. But I am never one to put down a rookie too much. I think that what we're seeing is the obvious transition from college to pro is way, way harder than people could expect, especially for a quarterback where you are the playmaker, you're the one making all these decisions. And if you don't have like the arguments going, you don't have the coaching to back you up in Robert Salah as of right now, and we'll see if that changes. But I think that even in preseason, I remember it was a different one-on-one show, and we're talking about how you kind of can't give him too much pressure. It's 2 games. Yeah, they've lost both games, but it doesn't really define the rest of his career. And I don't think it should. And that exactly goes with the Peyton Manning stat that you mentioned too. So I think that in that way, you could give a little bit more credit to the Jets and just see how the next games play out, how the rest of the season plays out. But I don't think that even the rookie season could translate that much for the rest of his career.
Absolutely. And I think that the Jets fans, like I said a little earlier, they do have something to look forward to with this group. This defensive line is special. They're going to need to fix the secondary. They're going to need to make some serious changes in the secondary. And we'll hope that this coaching staff and this group, this whole, like, it doesn't matter if you're able to keep your head coach if the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are turning over. It needs to be a cohesive unit for a number of years to really get the juices flowing for this Jets franchise. I mean, you have the running game looked pretty good. You have Michael Carter, and then Coleman looked pretty good himself. It's a good 1-2 punch out of the backfield for the Jets. It's something to be excited for. And like last year, when you had Gase and Darnold, you had nothing to be excited for. It felt like you knew that the head coaches were getting tossed out the window at the end of the year. You knew Darnold probably wasn't going to continue. You knew this was going to be the year to redraft a quarterback. So I think that this group of Jets is still going to be the base of the Jets of tomorrow.
And I think too, something that really it threw me off about the Jets, and maybe now we could get into the Giants a little bit more, is that the Jets are now tied with the Giants with the lowest winning percentage since the start of 2017. So they have both gone 18-48. That's a 273 winning percentage. And so, I mean, I remember too, like just talking to people about it. It's like, all right, maybe New York sports is changing. Once the Knicks started to get good, we're like, all right, maybe New York actually does have a chance. We'll see how it goes. New York sports, like Fordham soccer, that's what my roommates are watching. And they're happy about. But yeah, so I think that that stat alone is really concerning, but ebbs and flows, like I think that if you're this low, like you said, Will, how much lower can you go from here? So let's talk Giants. So the Giants lost in a nail biter to Washington 29-30, and we could say it came down to one play, but I don't think you could really say that about any game really. But the Giants did lose on Sunday to Washington. And Will, I'll go to you first. I want to know what you think about the Giants moving forward. Are they going to be better? Are they going to be able to be at least better than the Jets?
Well, as a Giants fan, I find disrespect in you asking me if the Jets are going to be better than the Giants. But fair enough, fair enough. I know you get paid to ask those questions, but basically, I don't think so. I think the Giants have a really good future ahead of them. They're playing Atlanta. They're favored. That's a game that they can get. That's a game that they could totally get. And they play the Saints the following week and Dallas. Those are all gettable games. It's not like you're going up against the Chiefs or another powerhouse like the Bills or something like that. But they're this close. They're this close. They lost so many games last year. I read a stat that they lost about 7 games by a total of 8 points. So they're right there. They're losing these games by such little minor errors and points, but that it's inexcusable. Like on that last play that we saw the other night, it's terrible that they're going to lose a game on a call like that. But that's just how it's going for the Giants, and they'll get their day. They're going to be good soon. Daniel Jones, I have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, like you said, Daniel Jones. I've been a Daniel Jones hater for many years. Coming out of Duke, I said I don't see it out of Duke. And then obviously when he led the league in turnovers his rookie year, I was ready to toss this project away immediately. But I think this year, he really hasn't been the problem. It's been the costly penalties. It's been other offensive weapons that haven't come through for him. But Daniel Jones can't be blamed this year. Obviously, the Giants O-line is, suspect at best, as it has been the last couple of years. But Daniel Jones I have faith in Daniel Jones at this point, as I haven't in past years. So I'm excited for what the Saquon Daniel Jones duo does in the future, because now I genuinely believe that that's the future of the New York Giants. Those two, what could be superstar duo.
This brings back the question of the O-line and the importance of the O-line. Is the O-line good enough to give Saquon room to do damage like we have seen from him in the past, especially before his injury? Asking about the O-line now. I mean, the Giants, they nearly won. They had 29 points, like we mentioned before, close to 400 yards of offense. But yeah, I would say, like, from what I'm observing, is that the question really is about the O-line and the importance of creating room for Daniel Jones to get a good pass off, and then for Saquon to do what Saquon does. So what do you guys think about the O-line, the Giants O-line?
Yeah, obviously it's a young group. I mean, they don't have any names that you think like, oh, you can rely on this guy for the next coming years. There's no one that's really solidified their spot over the next 5-6 years. So it's tough to blame. It's tough to blame the skill players when you have a line like this. And I think it's pretty much the same argument with all rookie quarterbacks. That's a big general argument, because Daniel Jones is not the only one who's struggled, who had a bad offensive line. Obviously, guys like Trevor Lawrence, they were faced some pressure this past week, and it's hard to blame the youthful quarterbacks when it's the system and the O-line that needs to set them up for success. Will.
Yeah, I agree. I think that their defense is one of the stronger ones in the league, and they don't get enough credit for it. You got Blake Martinez. He's got 21 tackles this year. He's playing phenomenal, and they're a defensive heavy team, but they also have the best running back in the league, in my opinion. But right now, he's not playing well at all. I think the first week he had about 2.4 fantasy points. So it's hard to say where he's going to go after recovering from this injury. But he's Saquon. He's an animal. He can do it. He can do anything on any week. You can walk out there and have 500 yards. Not actually, but you know the point I'm making.
And the Giants do take on the Falcons this weekend. So the Falcons scored 25 points against the Bucks, which is obviously promising, but they've also allowed 80 points in 2 weeks. So New York's going to be home. And Will, you're happy, you're a Giants fan, and all my family's Giants fans too. So hopefully Sunday will be a good game. Will we see a win out of the Giants?
I think they have a great chance at a win. I think that they're destined to turn the corner at some point with this group. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is a superstar wide receiver in the NFL. He's earned that title, and he can really, make a difference against this Giants secondary. So we're going to see if the, high-powered, what should be a high-powered Giants offense with all the weapons they have, including Saquon Barkley, if they're able to keep up with that Atlanta offense, because it should be a relatively high scoring game to me.
Atlanta 0-2 right now, fourth in the NFC South. You really can't make anything of them, but like Gigi brought up before, they did lose a very close game to the Bucks, in which I thought they played pretty well. But it's the Bucks; they're going to win. It's Tom Brady. Can't expect anything different. But I think on Sunday, the Giants are definitely going to work them, beat the spread for sure.
Okay. All right. So we got our predictions in. That's what we have for NFL. We've got a lot of good segments coming up. We have Ryan Gregory waiting on the line right now from Yankee Stadium. We're going to bring him in. We're going to talk Yankees. Maybe we'll talk a little Mets too. And before that, we're going to take a break. Okay, thank you for staying with us. We're happy to have you here, YouTube and Twitter, one-on-one. And we have a very special guest right now for this special Yankee segment, Ryan Gregg, where you're at this exciting Yankees game. When we first started talking to you on this call, they were down 3-0. The scores changed. What's going on? Tell me, Ryan.
Yeah, exciting is not how I describe the early parts of this game, but since I joined this call, it seems like it always happens when I do these updates, stuff starts happening. So it's 3-2 right now. Yankees are still losing the game and are on second, no outs. We'll see what happens there, but I'm just really thrilled to be joined with you guys.
And we're so happy to have you. We have a lot to ask you. These are very important next couple games for the Yankees. And I mean, they're coming off 2 wins, 4-3 on Monday against the Rangers, 7-1 in the last game. And we just want to know, we have a lot of questions. First thing I want to ask you, though, is with 2 tough series to finish this year, what is a realistic goal record, or what is a realistic record for the Yankees over the last 6 games? What will it take to secure that final AL wildcard spot, Ryan?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm going to go past just those 6 games. First of all, tonight's game is huge because it's against the Rangers, a team over 50 games under 500. And then the last 3 series, you have the Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays. So the first 2 teams you're chasing right now. You could pass the Blue Jays with the win tonight. Those are absolute must-win. Rays, we know, just because it's the last series of the year, you're going to have to win it, right? Like, it's not going to matter in the standings. Yankees aren't going to win the American League East, but that's something you have to take care of business. You know, it's fortunate for the Yankees the schedule breaks this way, honestly, because of how bad they've been playing against these, worse teams like the Orioles. They get to control their own destiny. It's something Aaron Boone has talked about before the game all the time. It's like, this is go time. This is why we get paid. And now, like, they don't have to worry. They don't have to scoreboard watch. You know, a lot of people right now are scoreboard watching. The Red Sox are killing the Mets. But you're not going to have to worry about that coming up because you have a 3-game set against them. You play the Blue Jays and Rays. So realistic, what you can hoping for is no matter what the record is, that you're still playing baseball past October 3rd. That's absolutely the goal. You need to get into that wild card game. You know, it doesn't look great to host it, and that would be nice to get in Yankee Stadium. But beggars can't be choosers. You know, the Yankees put themselves in this spot. They're going to have to live with it, and they're going to have to win these games coming up if they want to even have a chance in that game.
Yeah, I hear you. And like you said, this hasn't been the best month for Yankees baseball. Facing a couple injuries, obviously, Talion's on the 10-day. Loaizaga on the 10-day. First of all, do you know what's the status for those 2 pitchers? Are we going to see those guys in the regular season?
Yeah, we do have an update on both them. Jameson Taillon pitched tonight in Scranton, I believe, his first rehab start. You know, he's only been gone 14 days. So you have to imagine it's not going to be a crazy long rehab stint. Maybe one more start, if that. You could also see the Yankees building him back up in the major leagues like they did with Corey Kluber just to get some arms in there. So that's someone you obviously need to have. He was money in the second half of the season. Struggled a little bit before that injury, but he is still a pitcher. You know, you'd be confident starting in a big game. Jonathan Loaizaga, the Yankees' best reliever throughout the year. No question about that. He's a little further away. He played catch at 120 feet on Tuesday. If everything goes well in between, he's supposed to throw a bullpen on Friday. That's someone you clearly need. Yankees have lost some games recently where Chad Green's blown some big spots. That would usually be Jonathan Loaizaga's innings. So those are obviously 2 guys you really need if you want to make a stretch run. And it does look like they will both pitch again this season.
Gotcha. So, yeah, they will come back before the wild card game if the Yankees are able to make that.
So,
yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, that was just it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. And I just need to ask one more question about a pitcher. So how important is the addition of Domingo German to the bullpen right now?
Yeah, Herman activated before the game. They asked Aaron Boone about it, and he said it's pretty similar pattern to Luis Severino. Obviously, Herman's a starter, but, at this point in the season, you can't build him back up. He's had too much time off. You have your starters that you trust more than Domingo. So he's a guy that I think you look at as a multi-inning kind of potential weapon as a plus. He can eat some innings in a blowout here and there, but also he's a guy that we know he has great stuff. We know he can pitch at this level. He can make up for the loss of Britton, for Green struggles, everything like that, provide length. So that's something I think you could look at. Him and Severino both being multi-inning assets. Boone said, this game tonight, he'd love to get him in a spot here, 3-2. Don't know if it's a perfect spot, perfect leverage for him, but he's someone that the Yankees will count on. They do trust his arm, and he is someone that will pitch significant innings for this team.
Now, getting into a bit of a hypothetical for you, let's say the Yankees are able to make it to the wild card game. And obviously, Cole coming off an abysmal start last time, 11-1 loss for those Yanks. his most recent time out on the mound. Talion coming back soon, still in Scranton. If you were Aaron Boone, who's getting the start on the bump in that one game?
Got to be honest, kind of a ridiculous question here. Garrett Cole, terrible last time, right? No doubt about that. If he keeps pitching like that, he pitches Friday versus the Red Sox, I think it's an interesting conversation. But you pay Garrett Cole $320 million. He's also someone, weirdly enough, I don't have the stats in front of me here, but it feels like he struggles more in those weird games that really no one cares about, 1 o'clock. Sunday games, then when the lights are the biggest. He's someone that you trust, you throw out there. The only reason he wouldn't pitch in that game, Miles, is if he has to start a game 162 to get him there. They interviewed him before the game. Yankees have him set up right now to where he would start a potential 162 on 1 day's short rest. He'd start the wild card game on 1 day's extra rest. So they're planning on having him in that big game, whatever it is. You hope it's the wild card game. You hope game 162 isn't a do or die. But, Jordan Montgomery is someone who I don't think Tyon would ever get there. Jordan Montgomery would likely start game 1 of a playoff series if Cole has to go before then. He's been money. I think he's given up 3 runs or less in 22 of 25 starts. He's someone you really count on, really rock solid starter. But Garrett Cole is your guy. You throw him out there in the biggest game. There is no question about that.
All right. So obviously a solid response right there. I have yet another hypothetical, but this time I'm asking about a team that's not the Yankees, and I want to talk about Toronto. So Toronto lost today, which brings the Yankees to a tie for that final wild card spot. The final spot will probably be decided during the 3-game set on the road in Toronto. Does the young core of the Blue Jays realistically have a chance to end the Yankee season early in Toronto?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. The Blue Jays are a terrifying team for the Yankees. They've been so the second half of the year. They just swept them 4 games at Yankee Stadium. Yankees had all the momentum going in. Yankees are 4.5 up going into that. So if you were able to take care of business 2 weeks ago, this would not even be a discussion. This wouldn't be a team that you're worried about, but they're red hot. Marcus Semien has 7 homers against the Yankees this season. Vladdy Jr., we know he's pushing for that triple crown. They have the bats. They have the starting rotation. The bullpen is certainly concerned with the Blue Jays, but they are a team that can certainly beat the Yankees. We've seen it. It's someone where if you face them in a wild card game, you don't really feel great about your chances. They're just a really scary team right now. They definitely have the potential to end the season for the Yankees.
All right, Ryan, and we just have one more question for you right now, and then we're going to let you get back to this nail biter. Hopefully it'll be a Yankees win tonight, and that's what I want to ask you about right now. So top of the 6th right now, 3-2 Rangers. What are you seeing out of this game, and what are your predictions? Are the Yankees going to get a 3rd win in a row?
It's funny. It's like literally since I joined this call, a ton has happened. Yankees get the tying run out, gunned it home, I believe. Just I apologize. I keep looking at the screen to the left of me. It's because I'm trying to see what's going on. I can hear the crowd going crazy. So down 3-2. I think last inning you saw a really bad error by Luke Voit. It set up 1st and 3rd, 1 out. Wandy Peralta came in. It certainly was a chance for the Rangers to blow it open. They did not do so. They didn't score a run. Yankees get it to 3-2. I trust the Yankees against this bullpen. It's not very good. Yankees have been hitting the ball really hard today. The Rangers' runs have came on some really good luck. They've had some grounders find some holes. Brock Holt had a bloop single that is a dictionary definition of a bloop single. Really lucky there. So, yeah, it's hard to make in-game predictions. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to ride with the Yankees. You have to beat a team 50 games under 500, so I think they'll do just that.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Have fun tonight. Good luck. Let's go Yankees.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Miles, I think we learned a lot. And I'm happy we gave him and the Yankees some good juju on that. And they get to turn around, score 2 runs while we're talking to him. So we actually have a clip, and hopefully our producer, Alex Walls, can cue it up, about Severino's return, which I know Ryan just mentioned. So he calls it the injury bug, Boone calls it in the clip, but Severino really turned that around, and let's give it a listen.
Proud moment for him and for his teammates and for all of us that, have seen him go through, a lot. We're talking about a great pitcher in this league that, has obviously had the injury bug and battled different things and, kind of worked his tail off to get to this moment.
All right. So Miles, like Boone said, Sevy's back, 2 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, 2 hits, 0 walks, and honestly, just a great return. He's back. Crazy stat line. I'm sure the Yankees are going to use as much momentum from that as they can. How important is Severino's return, Miles?
It's going to be huge. And he's not the only injured pitcher for the Yankees this month. They went on this absolute tear about a month and a half ago where they just looked unbeatable. They closed that gap with the Red Sox, made it a tight division at that moment, and then now they've fallen back because of all these injuries at the pitcher position between Talion, Herman, Loaizaga. So I'm really excited about Herman in particular coming back, but all three of those guys should make an impact this week for that final playoff push that these Yankees have to make.
And let's hope they make it too. They have to secure this wild card spot. And I know we've been talking about defense a lot tonight, but the Yankees offense is turning around, which I feel like is a really, really powerful thing to say. You got the Bronx Bombers. You want that out of them. They had arguably the best offensive team in baseball over 2019 and 2020. They're missing key production from people like DJ LeMahieu, Gleyber Torres, Luke Voigt, Clint Frazier, all these people. But one stat that I thought really stood out was Stanton's 118 mile per hour home run the other night. And I mean, I feel like something like that, it's just something that gets Yankees fans on their feet. And I feel like if the offense could turn around and you have pitchers coming back from injury and you could have at least limited offensive production from the teams that you're playing, I think the Yankees will be fine heading forward. So, yeah, I'm happy to see the offense coming back. Judge had 3 RBIs last game, a 3-run bomb, and Stanton 2 RBIs with the solo shot in the third. So I feel like, at least for me, seeing this offense turn around is one of the biggest things beyond pitching, because you can't control things like injuries, things like, whatever, shoulder tightness or whatever's going to come up from throwing the ball as much as they do. So what are you thinking about this offense moving forward?
Absolutely. No, they have turned it around. And that during, like I referenced, the month and a half tear where they closed the gap in the AL East, it was absolutely the Bronx Bombers look that brought him there. It was Luke Voigt hitting the bombs. It was, Giancarlo and Judge, using their size to their advantage. And Giancarlo, like you said, the 118 mile an hour home run, that's rare in baseball. Giancarlo is one of those guys that can consistently do that year in and year out. I remember I was at a Dodger game back at Dodger Stadium. Giancarlo Stanton hit one out of the park into the parking lot, something that has really never been done besides, Stanton. And Stanton's a guy that grew up in the Los Angeles area at Sherman Oaks High School, someone who's always been known for his power since that age. So I'm excited for what Giancarlo and Judge and that power duo can do the rest of the way for the Yankees, because really on paper, it's the scariest lineup in baseball. Maybe, you have the Dodgers, with, Muncy, Seager, all those guys, but it's like, it really doesn't compare to a Yankees full strength lineup.
I mean, I completely agree. Something I do want to mention, I feel like I'm being pretty negative tonight about sports in general, but we can't forget about the Yankees being annihilated 11-3 at Yankee Stadium on Saturday against Cleveland. So I feel like in games like that where you don't have offensive production and then you have a pretty solid win in a 7-1 win against the Rangers, it's a lot of back and forth. It's a really high one day for the offense, a really low the next day. And I feel like what we could see from tonight's game, hopefully, since we've seen it turn around, the 2 runs that they scored since we're on the call, is more consistent offense and more focus on defense as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like the live by the 3, die by the 3 for these Golden State Warriors in basketball. When you live by the home runs, die by the home runs, it's not going to be always too consistent. You need those guys that are everyday hitters, going to get your leadoff singles, going to get your good pieces of hitting that get overlooked in this day and age of baseball. But it's part of the Yankee strategy, really. That when you have this, you have all these home run hitters. Home runs are not going to happen every day, and those 3-run performances are always possible with the stud lineup like this.
Yeah, I mean, we see that consistently. You mentioned too, like the early success that the Yankees had where they seemed like a juggernaut. They seemed so unstoppable. But then they get bit by the injury bug, like Boone mentioned, at least in off or defensive perspective. But I think that a more sustainable version of baseball, which I guess is not really something that I could claim, is what we saw at the Mets a couple weeks ago when I had the one-on-one. I know we spent a lot of time, Dylan and I, talking about this bunt that was laid down. And I mean, I feel like the people know I play softball here, and like we talk about how, I mean, we're different from pro baseball players, especially with the paychecks, but the importance of creating things on offense when maybe you're not seeing the ball doesn't look that big that day, or you're just in a slump. And like I said, the Yankees are missing some key power hitters that they could rely on in 2019, 2020, and it's just not the same this year. I think that something that we saw the Mets was like a certain elasticity and like openness to learn and to be young and to try things that might have not worked before, or maybe that you hadn't done in a while, like laying down a bunt, but just switching things up so that you aren't just getting stuck in a route where you're trying to be someone that you used to be. Like you said, you have someone like Giancarlo Stanton, you're going to expect power out of him. Aaron Judge, like all rise for these crazy home runs that we've seen him hit and great highlight reels out of him. From an offensive perspective. But how sustainable is that really? And is that the downfall of the Yankees? Is it a problem with contracts? I don't know. Or is it really a problem with a mindset the Yankees have, and there's no willingness really to change and to adapt to certain in-game situations, but then also just in general to maybe more cultural changes, not cultural changes outside of baseball, but like a cultural shift, maybe like a more focused on hitting for contact rather than hitting for power. You know, I feel like sometimes they could get stuck in this route where as a Yankees fan, you love and you look forward to these home runs, but when you don't see them, and maybe you see them and it's in a loss, then the Yankees fans could get really discouraged. So that's something that I noticed, at least from them, is not an unwillingness to change.
Yeah, and I think that it's obviously been their philosophy to stack this power lineup the whole way. And like you said, the Mets and their bunting philosophy, hard to talk about, the Mets in a positive light these days now that they're obviously out of the running. But I see what you're saying. And that open-mindedness usually comes out of necessity. It comes when your back's against the wall, you've tried everything, and you need something new to work. And with this Yankees group, they've never really had to do that. I mean, it's worked most of the way. Obviously, this most recent month is not the Yankees baseball we've been used to all year, and it's what's dropped them out of their relatively secure spot in the wild card. Now they're fighting. I guess they never truly secured it, but the Yankees have never really felt like their backs have been against the wall and they've needed to be open-minded or think about things like bunting, moving the next man over the way some of these smaller ball clubs have to. What I think of is like, yes, the Mets are obviously the smaller club in this city, but when you look at teams like the A's, it's been their identity, it's been their philosophy forever. This bunting, situational hitting is the most important thing, and it's really the only thing baseball's really about. Moving the next man over, situational hitting, getting a good, clean bunt down when necessary, and that's never been the Yankees' identity. Even back to the Moneyball era when baseball really changed. It was always the Yankees were the big dogs, and teams like the Mets and the A's were scratching for runs with a different philosophy. So obviously, this has been a beyond successful stretch with this philosophy of the Yankees, and they've never been forced to re-examine themselves and take a step back and say, maybe we need to make some changes. And now they finally are. When they're trying to make this playoff push, this is the time where you need to consider those things to get those extra couple runs that's going to get you a spot in the wild card.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that something too is a spread of power in the lineup, or like at least a consistent offensive production from every player in the lineup. So even just from tonight's game, I'm looking at the stats right now. You have 4 hits from the Yankees. You have Stanton, you have Urshela, Higgy, and Gardner have 4 hits. With the Rangers, almost everybody in the lineup has gotten a hit with the exception of 2. So I feel like that's another thing for the Yankees is spreading it out. So not only are you getting consistent hits and you're hitting a good stat line every night as an individual player, but spreading them out across the team where it's not just relying on a certain player that's hot that day. You're not relying on a 3-run home run from Judge. You could rely on every player in the lineup. And I don't know if the Yankees offense is missing that depth with the lack of an offensive production like we have seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like it's just an interesting position for the Yankees, one that they're not used to finding themselves in. I believe at the beginning of the year, we didn't expect much from this Yankees pitching staff, but we would have assumed that they were absolutely a playoff team. Obviously, the Red Sox have overperformed in the Rays. We knew they were going to be good. No one knew they were going to be this good. So it's truly interesting spot for these Yankees.
Yeah, and they have Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays coming up. And I mean, Brian seems pretty pessimistic about their matchup against the Blue Jays. And thank you for that question, by the way. So I don't know what to expect right now as a Yankees fan. Brian was focused on that young core of the Blue Jays that obviously he was really confident will perform well against the Yankees in the next couple games. So what do you think? I mean, let's put a claim on it right now. You say, are they going to secure that final AL wildcard spot? What do you think, Miles?
To me, they do. I absolutely think they do. I think that it's going to be up to the pitching because that Bo Bichette, Vladdy Jr. combo is a powerful one. Obviously, Simeon's had a fantastic year over there in Toronto. So that lineup is a pretty scary lineup. Can't really overlook it and say if we score enough runs, we'll be fine. Our pitching doesn't matter because we'll just outscore them. They can put up some runs with the Yankees. So it'll be an interesting spot. But to me, the Yankees do secure it and send their season into the wild card situation because the Yankees know how to win. They're a group of grinders with a good attitude to me, and I think they come through when it matters most.
Okay, yeah, you have a lot of faith in Yankees baseball. I echo your sentiments. I feel like, yeah, we got to believe that the Yankees would make playoffs. Like you said, it was a no-doubter that they would going into the season, and especially midway through the season when they were hot and pretty much unstoppable. So, yeah, I believe in that. I'll believe in luck. I know we'll get to Liberty later, too. And we saw them. They had a lot of luck, and they made the playoffs in a way that a lot of people didn't expect. But before we get to Liberty, we're going to talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about Ben Simmons. We're going to talk about things that are moving and shaking even before the preseason starts. And we're going to bring back in Will for those segments. But until then, enjoy a little break. Hello, everyone. I'm Gigi Spear. This is One on One. I'm joined with Miles, and yet again, we're joined by Will. We're going to be talking about the NBA right now. Thank you for staying with us. I'm excited for this segment, even though it's going to be a lot of theorizing, a lot of unpredictables, and maybe a lot of hot takes too. So we'll see where it goes. What we really, really want to touch on right now is some big news coming out the NBA, and that's that Ben Simmons has requested a trade ahead of this preseason. He does not want to play another game with the 76ers, and he wants out of Philly. So, I mean, we could just open the floor right there. I feel like there's so much to say here. I don't think he'll stay in Philly. This is so similar to the James Harden situation. He wanted out, he got out, and maybe we didn't expect it with all the pounds he put on that he would end up at maybe the number one team in the NBA. But he's there, he's dominating. Are we going to see something similar out of Ben Simmons? Is he going to just stay in Philly? There's a lot of unpredictables. I'll just open it up to you. Miles will go first. How do you feel about this Ben Simmons news? Was it shocking to you?
It wasn't shocking at all. I mean, I think that we knew that the Ben Simmons 76ers situation was headed in this direction from the way that playoff series went when he had a Darnold seeing ghost moment under the basket that I think shook everyone around the NBA. Said, what's going on with Ben Simmons? Why does he not fit here anymore? And I think now that he's really cut ties and made his point clear, the 76ers are now in a position where they have to lower, because obviously they tried to get rid of a plenty, like many times over, just with these ridiculous deals that no one was really ever going to budge on. But now that the rest of the NBA knows the situation that the Sixers is in, that Ben Simmons really is going to do everything in his power not to return to Philly, I think that the 76ers will have to end up sending him elsewhere for a much lower price than they were planning on a month and a half ago.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, just to get the numbers in here before you jump in, Will, he's entering the second year of a 5-year, $177 million contract and do $33 million over this next year. That's a heavy price tag. And the other question that's going to obviously is already running rampant through the NBA is who could pay that? Are they going to lower this, like you said, Miles, or is some team going to step up and try and trade a superhero or a superstar? Yeah, Will, what do you think about this?
I think that $33 million is way too much for him. I know that he came in second in the Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's a 6'10", 230-pound point guard, which is unprecedented. He's a playmaker like nobody else we've ever seen in this league. Unbelievable. Great talent, but he doesn't fit in the organization of Philly. The process has been going on for so long, and it's just the process just keeps going and going. All these Sixers fans, they're continuing this little charade, and it's getting old, and I think he needs out. And basically, there's a few teams that he's getting interest by. One's the Kings, the Warriors, the T-Wolves, Houston, and surprisingly enough, the Nets. So the Nets are obviously the most crazy team I just stated, but there's news coming out of the organization right now that Kyrie Irving is pretty upset with the fact that the people who are running the front office are trying to set up deals for him to go somewhere else. So Kyrie Irving, in an effort to combat this ridiculous trade proposal, decided to take to Instagram and tell everybody that he'd retire before going to another team. He's such a petty guy, but you got to respect it. He's got the best handle in the game. He can do it. Never mind that. The Nets are probably way out of proportion. Houston seems like an okay idea. Match him up with John Wall, figure out what that could do. Those two could really work well together. But T-Wolves is seeming like the number one place he's going to go to at the moment. You know, they snag those little point guards like D'Lo and Anthony Edwards. They got him right now. But the thing is, they're not ready to give away Cat or Edwards because those are their foundation. That's the real process, in my opinion, that's actually going to work. There's something boiling up over there, and I like it. I'm here for it, honestly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Miles?
No, and that's a great, like you mentioned, the Timberwolves. That's a great young duo in Cat and Edwards. Obviously, Edwards much younger than Cat. Cat's a bit of a veteran at this point. You could call him in today's NBA. But Anthony Edwards showed that he deserved to be the number one overall pick. You know, it was down to him and LaMelo for that Rookie of the Year. And that'd be a crazy fit if Simmons is able to get shipped over to the T-Wolves, because that'd be a really nice trio that'd make a force in the East. And now looking back to what Ben Simmons would leave behind in such a competitive East, I don't see the 76ers being much of a competitor against teams like the Bucks, the Nets, and even what the T-Wolves could be, even like with Atlanta and the Knicks making out that core 5-6 seed of what we expect from the East. I don't really see a playoff spot from the 76ers if they do end up successfully shipping Ben Simmons. It feels like it would start over the process for him all over again with Joel Embiid looking to get 2 more pieces in there to add to that Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris duo. So it puts the Sixers in a tough spot because I don't really see success with Ben Simmons, and I surely don't see immediate success without Ben Simmons. So it's an interesting position they're in with no clear positive scenario where they come out a winner. But to me, they do end up shipping Ben Simmons off at a lower price than they wanted, and we'll see how it turns out. But Ben Simmons, I truly don't see him going back to Philadelphia.
Oh, I don't see him going back. But, the 76ers only finished in 6th last year. I don't think you could really rule them out. Yeah, Embiid needs 2 more role players, but he might be able – the NBA is a game of superstars. We know that. And now you need a superstar-studded cast. You can't just have one. And, Embiid finished 2nd behind Jokic last year for MVP votes. And I feel like that could be – he is an unstoppable force if he stays healthy. But you guys don't think Seth Curry and Tobias Harris could step up to the plate? I think that they'll still be in the playoffs for sure, but I don't think they'll be that lost without him, especially considering the people that are considered in trade rumors for Ben Simmons right now. Yeah, you're not getting Kyrie, and you have KD backing that up. KD wants Kyrie to stay. They moved to the Nets basically together. They wanted to be together. He's not going anywhere. Yeah, maybe he'll retire if that's threatened again. But like you said, I don't think he's moving anywhere. But I would argue that I don't think that the 76ers are that out of, especially out of playoff contention without Ben Simmons. They're set to take on the Raptors in preseason October 4th, and I think that should be a fun enough game. But they do have another guy that I feel kind of sentimental about, my boy Danny Green. You have good shooting out of Danny Green, and I felt like he kind of picked up the slack for Ben Simmons when, Ben Simmons was shooting I don't even know, 30% from free? No, definitely less than that.
No, that's correct.
30%? Okay, all right. I thought it was less. Yeah, so
doesn't shoot the ball much.
Shot the ball 10 times to be exact.
Yeah.
So not too bad, but not good of a stat line. So yeah, I would say they wouldn't be that worried without him. And I think that the crucial thing is that they're going to get someone better. I would say, I know, Will, you're kind of in for the T-Wolves. I would say the biggest spot that they would go, that Ben Simmons could go to, is the Warriors. But I don't know if you guys saw this. The Warriors owner, Joe Lacob, just fined $50K for tampering. He referred to Ben Simmons as the Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You basically could call him by his name at that point. What I see with this trade is I don't think you could take Draymond out of the Warriors, though. I think he's way too crucial. You think Warriors, yeah, you think Steph Curry, you think Splash Brothers, you think Klay Thompson, but you think Draymond and you think Andre Iguodala. I know he left for a little bit, but he's back now, and I feel like that's just a crucial thing. He is a menace on the court, too. So the Warriors are obviously looking to be back to who they were in 2015 for sure. They haven't won since 2018, but yeah, I would say that the hotbed for Ben Simmons right now would be Golden State.
Yeah, and with or without Ben Simmons, I'm really excited about these Warriors. Like you said, Klay should be back with James Wiseman, Klay, Draymond, Steph. Even without Ben Simmons, you have guys like Jordan Poole, who really made a difference last year. To me, Jordan Poole is really one of the most underrated players in the NBA right now. He can play on both sides of the ball very well, can create his own shot, he can facilitate, adds a lot of energy, and I'm really excited about this Warriors team. I think, Will, you already mentioned this, that the Warriors were 7th in the West preseason rankings, and that's ridiculous. I think they're absolutely a top 4 team in the West. I totally agree with you because they're super talented. And Steph Curry right behind Kevin Durant were the best basketball players in the world. I mean, if I were to, do a fantasy draft of, getting to draft a new squad in this NBA, Steph Curry's going in the top 3. Even at his age, Steph Curry can really carry a ball club in a way few players can these days. So I'm really excited about these Warriors. And to me, it seems a bit unrealistic that Ben Simmons will end up in Golden State. That'd be a historic story after the Kevin Durant dynasty. Try and reboot the dynasty with a fallen Ben Simmons. So that'd be a great storyline. Personally, I don't see it happening, but the Warriors are going to be a top 4 team in this West and have a chance to make a playoff run to me.
Yeah, Miles, I think you completely nailed it there, and I couldn't agree with you more. Steph Curry gets no love. 32 points averaging last year. Crazy. People don't even talk about it. They forget about him. But like we said, 7 power ranking. Pretty sure Steph and Clay are going to be pretty mad about that. And honestly, there's a lot going on in the works for the Warriors organization at the moment. They did turn down Ben Simmons about a month ago, but working out right now, they have Avery Bradley, Quinn Cook, and Isaiah Thomas, who they could surely pick up over this offseason, who would be great additions for the entire team. Also, on the bench, or whether they want to play them or not, they got Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, who are great. They're going to be so good in the next few years, they don't even know it. Everyone's sleeping on the Warriors. The power ranking people are sleeping on the Warriors. Everyone's sleeping on the Warriors. It's insane. But back to business. Ben Simmons putting up 14 and 7 and 6 last year. I think that he's going to go to California, just like Gigi said. I think the Warriors are his number 1 destination. But also the Kings, they've expressed a little interest, but they're not willing to put Fox or Tyrese Haliburton on the menu. And also the Sixers haven't showed any interest in Bagley, which is no surprise. But also we got to think about players who want it out. We got to put our feet in Ben Simmons' shoes. We got to think about Harden getting out of Houston, Kawhi getting out of San Antonio, AD getting out of the Pelicans, and Butler leaving Minnesota. It's all those were shaky, distrust with the city that was it tainted relationships and tainted the way that they're going to view their star athletes for the future. So I think that, like Gigi said earlier, Houston, when they had that situation with James Harden, I think that that's how this is going to go down with Ben Simmons, honestly.
That's so well said, Will, because nobody expected Harden to go to the Nets. They didn't expect that power 3 to show up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the people hate the Warriors. No wonder they're ranked 7th. No wonder, like you said, people hate Steph Curry, or at least sleep on him. No, I don't think he's hateable. He's a very likable guy, but I hated the Warriors at 17 and 18, especially when they got KD. Man, that was so frustrating to watch, even just as a fan of basketball, because it was just so predictable that they were going to win. And I think that, like you said, Ben Simmons, 14, 6, and 7, similar stat line. I mean, not as many points out of Draymond, but 63 games played for Draymond, 31.5 minutes, just a little bit under Ben Simmons, 7 points averaging, less than Ben, obviously, 8.9 assists. And I think that's a crucial thing, is that you have more assists coming out of Draymond than you have coming out of Ben Simmons, who's meant to be a point guard. So yeah, you have a playmaker in the Warriors. And like I said, I don't think they would ever trade away Draymond. I think they know that they made that mistake with Iguodala, and now he's back. And I think that's huge for morale for Golden State. But I think the thing to see now is how Ben Simmons would fit in with the Warriors. Miles, you don't think he's going to go here. But I would love to see him go there, because I think that the NBA has progressed and continues to progress into a way where you need as many superstars as you could get. And yeah, Ben Simmons, like we said earlier, he's not a bust. I mean, he's just not what you'd expect out of a point guard you have a point guard who can't shoot. You have a point guard who can't score in the final minutes. But obviously we have that from Steph. We have that from Clay, who's coming back. He hasn't played an NBA game since 2019. In game 6. He tore his ACL, and then he tore his Achilles too. So he's back, and that's huge. And so you have scorers. So why not send Ben Simmons, person who can't score, to a place that's an undeniable scoring powerhouse?
No, I understand that. And I think that if Ben Simmons were to end up with the Warriors, he obviously wouldn't play a point guard role. I think it's a bit of a stretch to define him as a point guard at this point anyway. I mean, when you see what he does for the Sixers, I mean, you never see any point guard do what Ben Simmons does or play with his skill set. I mean, he's a positionless basketball player, if we're being honest. I don't think it's fair to call him a point guard. He wouldn't bring the ball up on the Warriors. That's obviously not in question. And I think that the Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry trio, I mean, if they're able to keep it intact while bringing Ben Simmons, I guess they'd have to give up one of the big three. But if they were able to keep two of those big three with Ben Simmons, the leadership from those vets could really change around Ben Simmons' mentality. Because to be honest, the biggest difference between a guy like Draymond Green and a guy like Ben Simmons, there's the physicality and their off-the-court behavior. Guys like Draymond Green lead the team. They provide the spirit. They provide the motivation, and they keep you in line. And the thing is, Ben Simmons is not the kind of guy that can keep a team in line. He's one of the guys that probably needs a vet to motivate him and keep him in line. So it'd be a really interesting trio, like I said, to follow up the KD Warrior era with the Ben Simmons Warrior era would be really interesting. No one would want to see that, obviously. No one wants to see two Warriors dynasties back to back. I think that the Warriors are still generally hated because of their years of success with KD. And, you know, everybody likes to hate on a dynasty, but I think we all kind of like to have it in the background, if we're being honest.
All right. Great discussion here. We'll see what happens over these next couple weeks. I'm certainly excited to know where Ben Simmons goes. It could shake up the league, but also things might not even change that much. But that's it for the NBA segment. Will, thank you so much for jumping in on that and the other segments. But next up, Miles and I are going to have an in-depth discussion about our New York Liberty, who are playing tomorrow night, 10 p.m. in a elimination game. First, we have a break. Okay, welcome back. And we're about to close out this one-on-one nightly show. Miles and I, we've both attended New York Liberty games. And by the grace of God, some luck, and actual really good performances, we have the New York Liberty in the playoffs. I'm so excited. I was praying for this, like I was on the team. But they will take on the Phoenix Mercury tomorrow night, 10 p.m. in Phoenix. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a single elimination game. So it's a very different format that we might be used to from the NBA. But the stakes are high. And like I saw last week on Friday, the Liberty played well when they were high stakes. It was a must-win game, and they ended up winning. They ended up beating the Mystics to make it into playoffs, and then the Mystics and Lynx both ended up losing. Or the Mystics and Sparks, excuse me, ended up losing on Sunday to give the Liberty the entrance. But Miles, you have a unique perspective to provide because you actually watched two games that the Liberty played against Phoenix at Barclays Center.
Yeah, no, I did go. I had the honor, the pleasure to go to these two games against the Phoenix Mercury. And game one, Phoenix was completely healthy. They had their big three in Sky Diggins-Smith, Diana Taurasi, and Brittany Griner. And Brittany Griner, in the final minute of a straight up blowout, hits the deck with this emphatic scream. And everyone in the stands is very concerned. It truly looks like a season-ending injury for Brittany Griner. Everyone was worried. Everyone was holding their breath. But so she sat out game two. And my point of that is Phoenix still kind of rolled them handily, given Liberty looked in the game. But even without Brittany Griner in game two, it was a Wednesday and a Friday game. Even in the Friday game, Liberty really never had a chance. So to be honest, I'm not too optimistic about this game, given that those games were at Barclays. This game is a one-game elimination in Phoenix. So it's going to be a tough one for the Liberty. Now, obviously, at the time, they weren't nearly playing as well as they are right now. It seems that the coach has gotten them into their vibe and into their mood, because before they didn't seem too motivated. This was an issue. When I started covering the Liberty, it seemed like they were a guaranteed playoff team. And then by the end of my short tenure with the Liberty, they were fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, it was hard to watch. I believe during my time covering them, they had lost 11 out of the last 12. And I personally never attended a Barclays Center game where the Liberty were able to secure a win. So it was a tough stretch of basketball to watch in the final couple months of the season. Obviously, the WNBA teams only play 32 games as of now. I think that's one of the things that needs to be changed about the WNBA, because having that 32-game season towards the end of the year, if you're not playing well, there's no getting that back. There's no 82 games the way there is in the NBA. So that'd be one of the fixes, I'd say. But obviously, Gigi, I know you're a bit more optimistic about the Liberty's chances, but to me, it's going to be a tough one.
I mean, okay, so there's so many things to change about the WNBA. I think they're doing a lot of things right, and that's the reason that we're here right now talking about it, is because they're doing a good job marketing, but there's so many things to change. There's so many unique things as well. So the month-long break that they have, that hiatus for the Olympic and All-Star break, is revolutionary for teams like the Liberty. And that's what I would say is you have a player like you saw, Natasha Howard. She put up less than 20 in the first game that you saw, but she's a crazy center presence for the Liberty.
Yeah.
They obviously need necessarily if they're going up against Brittany Griner. But on June 13th, that first game, their first actual matchup of the season against Phoenix, it was a close game. The Liberty won 85-83.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Liberty, I feel like it was a tale of two seasons. After the break, they come back. They lose all these games in a row. You start covering them too. They lost 106-79 in their first matchup that you saw on August 25th, and then again 80-64. So yeah, it's a closer game. You don't have Brittany Griner dominating the paint, but they're still losing by a great amount. And then that's part of their 8-game losing streak heading into the end of the regular season. So yeah, there was a lot of road games. There's inconsistencies in scheduling and travel, but they're losing 8 games heading into the end. And then they finally turned that around last Friday with the 91-80 win. A must win too over the Mystics. So I think, like you said, the WNBA has a lot of things that I think they could improve on. I'm sure people would want to see more than 32 games. And yeah, the month-long break helped this year, but that's not going to be available next year. So for people, even the Mystics benefited a lot from the month-long, because you have Elena Deladon coming off of injury, coming back, and it didn't help that much. She couldn't even play last Friday. That would have been a difference maker. But, I mean, you mentioned it before, the Mercury are so good. Yeah, I'm a little optimistic. I have to be, especially off of the fact that they even made the playoffs this year. But Yeah, I'm being realistic too. And you have the logo. They're playing the logo. Diana Taurasi's still in the league and she's on the team.
No.
Like, that's something that's just so mind-blowing too about the WNBA. I think the Liberty have great performers. And last Friday after the game, not only Coach Wall Hopkins, but all players that were in the press conference were saying that this is our team. Everybody we have right now, and the fact that they made the playoffs and they're giving up a good draft pick is so important because they found their core. It worked last week. They came off so hot in the first quarter. I forget what the point differential was, but it was the biggest point differential I had actually seen at Barclays Center. Yeah, I haven't seen that many wins either, like you. Like
Yeah.
I was only the third win I was a part of. But I mean, that being said, I think that there is hope for Liberty tomorrow night. A lot of things have to go right and they can't mess up at all, but they have an offensive presence that I think can match up pretty well against the Mercury tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I thought Hopkins was absolutely going to be canned at the end of this year, and now it seems that it's not a guarantee the way it was 2 weeks ago, because it didn't seem like the Liberty were trending in the right direction at all. The Sparks obviously had a bit of a turnaround, and they beat the Liberty once in Barclays during, I believe, Hurricane Henry. I was slated to go to the game, but Hurricane Henry kept me from it. But it's a tough matchup against a really good team. They're lucky to be here. They really are, because they needed some some unbelievable luck. You can call it unbelievable luck. You need some good teams to lose, and the Liberty got that, and they earned their spot. And it's funny because Sky Diggins Smith is, of course, who they have to play in the first round, and Sky Diggins Smith is a Liberty killer. She had the Twitter beef earlier this year with the Liberty team, and yeah, she comes into this 2-game set at Barclays, and I believe she was 6 for 9 from deep in the first half of game one. It was a truly unbelievable start. They got them out to a lead they couldn't blow. So if Sky Diggins Smith has one of those games at home for the Mercury, the Liberty have absolutely no chance. And that's just how it's going to be when you have 3 superstars. Any of them can turn it on at any time, in Brittany Griner, Diana Taurasi, and Sky Diggins Smith. And Sky Diggins Smith is, to me, one of the most underrated players in the WNBA. I think she should be top 5 in MVP rate in the MVP race year in and year out. She's that productive. So I'm looking forward to the matchup. It's absolutely going to be tough for the Liberty. And the Liberty, I have to be honest, they haven't lived up individually. A lot of their players have not lived up to the expectations. To be Sabrina Ionescu, obviously she was touted to be the next GOAT, the next Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird type player. And obviously it's early. Like we said, the logo's still in the league. So how long can Ionescu play for? It's going to be a long tenure for her. Hopefully she spends most of her career with the New York Liberty, but she has a lot of time left to turn it around. But right now, she hasn't played the way we expected. She's a facilitator now. She scored Oregon. She's a facilitator now, but she just doesn't seem to have that it factor as a scorer when it counts. So we'll see if she's able to perform tomorrow.
We talked about this before the show started. I completely disagree with you. I am not giving up on my girl Sab. Dude, she's not a scorer, but she is a scorer when it matters. And also she doesn't need to be a scorer is what I would say too. But Nigel Laney is one of their most prolific scorers. She went to the All-Star game too. I can't believe I just called you dude, by the way. That just threw me for a loop. That's how heated I am about this topic. So,
it's a personal debate.
It's getting deep right now. Okay, I think that Sabrina also, something about her, I feel like New York is the best fit for her. Yes, she was used to being more of a shooting guard, maybe a 2 or 3 at Oregon, and now she's forced to play that point guard role. But at the same time, New York was in dire need of a superstar. And the turnaround that they've had, they were happy with stopping last Friday. That's what I would say. From their time in the Wubble, they didn't do that well. And then to their success that they've had this season, even if it's only a 12-20 record, they're proud of where they are. I was thinking that Hopkins was going to leave for a little bit, But the fact that he harps on consistency so much is, in one way you could tell, sometimes you couldn't blame the players for the losses that they have. Someone that I think really stands out and works well with Sabrina is a vet in Sammy Whitcomb. And for a while, she led the WNBA in 3-point shots. And last week, the Liberty actually broke the WNBA season record for threes in a game. So she's more than an offensive presence for the team, and she is more of like a vocal leadership, locker room leadership that I feel like Sabrina needed coming into the league. Because you think about it, she is just a rookie. She came in and she had to play in the bubble, and I think that's a lot. That's a lot on a rookie. So a lot of people are considering this her rookie year. She had a lot of success earlier on, a lot of Eastern Conference Player of the Week, some buzzer beaters even, and nail biters.
Yeah.
And man, she's a killer too. She is a killer. She wants to win. And I think that we could expect her to turn it on tomorrow night. Last week, she scored 22 points when it mattered. And it was a quiet 22. You couldn't really tell because you had people like Natasha Howard and Benai Jelani just absolutely, like, their balls, everything was sinking. And someone, like I said, Benai Jelani, she is also a killer on defense. And I think that's what we can see in a really solid matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if she's, even though she's a little bit bigger, matching up against Sky Diggs tomorrow night.
And that's what you would need. And you would expect a big defensive night out of Laney. It's going to be necessary to keep Diggins in check and keep the Liberty in this game. I'm a huge fan of Laney myself as well. I think she's absolutely the MVP of this Liberty team. She's the person who you pass to when the game's on the line. She's that player who you want the ball in her hand when it counts. She's a bucket getter. She is a serious defensive presence. And I'm excited for what she can do in the playoffs because she hasn't had a lot of playoff opportunity. So I hope that she's able to come through with a big night. Obviously, I understand what you're saying about Ionescu's killer mindset. I love her attitude. I love what she represents on the court, right? She's a grinder with a great presence who looks to dish the ball out at any time she can. I just don't know if she has that it factor or she has that Sky Diggins Smith type scoring ability that's necessary to be that top tier superstar in this league. When you look at Diana Taurasi, the Sioux Birds, the true greatest of all time, not only can they facilitate, but they have that Laney quality where you want the ball in their hands. And for Ionescu to make that jump, obviously she still can. It's so early in her young career coming out of Oregon, genuinely around our age. She's not too much older than us, and she's so mature. She really plays like an adult out there. When I watch her warm up, it's so crazy. She doesn't warm up with the teams. It's this Kobe Bryant situation where I honestly, I know she had that relationship with Kobe Bryant. I'm not sure if this is something that he taught her, but she's always out there getting her work in to about an hour before the team comes out for her. And then she rejoins the team maybe 10, 15 minutes before they come out and warm up right before game time. But she seems locked in on game day. She wants to be that leader. I just don't know if I've seen the offensive output necessary to give her the accolades that everyone else has. And I'm excited for this game. It's going to take the Natasha Howard performance. It's going to take and you mentioned Sammy Whitcomb. It's a great point because I was at the game, I believe it was prior to her injury. And she was just lights out from three and carrying Liberty to like an emotional place in this game where they were really in it. And then that was the only game I got to see in person with Whitecomb on the floor. After that, she was injured the rest. And they didn't have that same spirit, that same enthusiasm, that same grinding mentality that's necessary that veteran presence can provide. So I'm excited for what this Liberty team can do in the future. Although to me, in a one-game situation, this isn't the year. But that being said, in the future, it should not be a one-game situation in the playoffs. That needs to be changed in the WNBA. At least a 3 or 5 game series in the first 2 rounds. And obviously, I know the semifinals, because there's no East and West in the playoffs, since there's only 12 squads, they can't do East and West, and it's just the semis and the finals. But I think it should be 7-7 for the semis and the finals and fives before that, just to provide a fun playoff atmosphere in this WNBA. The one game, even though it's supposed to provide that intensity, it's short-lived and generally anticlimactic to me.
Yeah, and the fact that there's a whole reseeding after each round too, which the higher seed plays the lowest seed every round. I think that's gonna be interesting once the Sun are actually playing too. The Sun and the Aces have that double bye. They secured the first 2 spots. But yeah, once they're in the mix, and they've had the best record in the WNBA all season. They've won 14 heading into playoffs. So hopefully the Liberty will be in it. Someone I want to say before we talk about a different restructuring of the WNBA to watch out for people who might not know that well is Dee Richards tomorrow night. She is also a rookie, and I think that we could see her growth be manifested tomorrow night, because every time I've seen her, she's gotten more confident, along with Michaela Onyewerre, who also has just gained confidence and looked like kind of the player she was in college, where she was the person, the go-to on the team. Like we mentioned, Sammy Whitcomb too. She turns it on. She's going to turn it on in the stretch. I would argue so would Rebecca Allen, who I would say is one of the best fourth quarter players to exist. But speaking of fourth quarter too, to go back to restructuring, fourth quarter, each quarter is 10 minutes. And I'm wondering if, along with adding teams and increasing the playoff structure, increasing the number of games teams are playing the regular season, I would say too, and I want to know what you think about this from a fan and reporting perspective, would a 12-minute quarter, 14-minute quarter be more exciting for the watching WNBA teams?
I could understand a 12 just to even it out with the NBA. 4 teams seems like it'd be a very long game to me. Even though you would get those higher scoring numbers, I can't imagine such a long game in the WNBA. And one of the things that struck me about these games when I'm there in person, it does seem like they're very short. They're just as short as a college game, and they're not as long as an NBA game. So I think that obviously the NBA did not look like as finished of a product as it is today as the WNBA did. That was a tough way to phrase that point. My point is that, the WNBA is a finished product in its 75th year. The NBA, WNBA on its on its 25th year, obviously only has 12 squads, and they're not at that point of development where they have 30 teams and they can do a full playoff schedule the way the NBA can. But as the WNBA develops, I think they're going to try and move those rule changes to the NBA with the 12-minute quarters, try and get more games. 32 games really doesn't make sense to me. I understand that the facilities of the WNBA with 12 teams right now, you can't do 82 games. But I think you need to at least add 25% more games, make this a more interesting year, make this a more, a longer year that the fans can really get invested in, and teams can go through lulls and come back from those lulls. Because like we said, with this Liberty, they got in this late season lull, and because of how short the year is, they're never really able to get back out of it. So I'm excited for the WNBA because there's going to be a lot of changes and they're headed in the right direction.
All right. Thank you, Miles. And that's all we have for tonight, sadly. 101 is a production of WFUV and WFUV Sports. Thank you to our producer, Alex Wolves, and for our hosts, Miles Grossman and Will Grant. I'm Gigi Spear. Have a great night, and thank you for joining us.